Hey everybody out there, Math Muscle back again, solving quadratic equations part 2. In part 1, we spoke of scenarios where b equaled 0. Today, in this video, we're going to look at when c equals 0. So without any further delay, let's get it on. Okay, so if c equals 0 in the equation ax squared plus bx plus c, then we'll be left with a scenario that looks very similar to this, where ax squared plus bx equals 0. Now, in order to complete a problem like this, there are some foundational skills that you need to have available to you, which is the ability to find a greatest common factor. So for example, let's say that I have the equation 4x squared plus 20x is equal to 0. The greatest common factor, GCF, in this case would be a 4x. And what I mean by that is if I take a 4x out of 4x squared, I'd have 4x times x. And if I took a 4x out of 20x, I'd have 4x times 5. Now what I can do is I can take that 4x and factor it out of those terms and be left with the following expression and equation. So we can go back to our skills with if a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0. So in this case, either 4x equals 0, which would mean that x would equal 0, or x plus 5 would equal 0, which would mean that x equals negative 5. Okay, so here would be our two solutions to the original equation right up here. So if I were to plug in and verify 4x squared plus 20x equals 0, if I plugged in a 0, that should satisfy that equation. If I plugged in a negative 5, that should also satisfy that equation. Okay, so with that being said, what's kind of cool in situations where c equals 0 is that x equals 0 will always be a solution. Okay, that's kind of nice to have that warm and fuzzy feeling of that, knowing that confidently. Let's look at another example. Okay, let's say that negative 10x is equal to 2x squared. I want to know what would satisfy that equation, what x values. First of all, I know that if there is no c value, I don't see a constant up there at all, that 0 will be a solution. And clearly, negative 10 times 0 would equal 2 times 0 squared. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set one side equal to 0. So I'm going to make the left side equal 0. So that means I have to add a 10x to the right side. Now, clearly you can see here that I've got 0 for c. So I can work with the method that I have available to me, which is to find the GCF, factor it out, and then set the two factors equal to 0. So the GCF in this case, I'm going to write it up here. Looks like it'll be 2x. So if I were to factor a 2x out of both terms, I would be left with x plus 5. Now I happen to pick the same solutions here apparently, but that's okay. So 2x equals 0, which means that x would equal 0. That kind of just shows what we already knew, that 0 is going to be a solution. And x plus 5 equal to 0, which means that x would also equal negative 5. There are our two solutions to the equation. I promise on the next slide I'll do a couple of examples where the two answers are not 0 and negative 5. So let's move on to a couple more. As usual, you can go ahead and if you're feeling comfortable with the process, and jump into it and then come back and watch the video. Okay, I'm going to make the left side equal 0 in number 3. That means I'm going to subtract 11x from both sides. That gives me a negative 24x on the right side. The greatest common factor in this case will be a 3x. So I can rewrite 3x times the quantity x minus 8. Okay, if I pull a 3x out of 24x, that gives me 8. Okay, hence if I were to distribute, I should get as a result that expression there. Okay, so now I could take 3x, set it equal to 0, therefore x equals 0. We knew that was going to be a solution. And x minus 8 is equal to 0, therefore x equals 8 is a solution. Okay, number 4, I'm going to bring everything from the right over to the left side. So subtracting x squared, I will get an 8x squared, and subtracting 48x, I get negative 48x. The right side is equal to 0. C is equal to 0, so my greatest common factor is going to be 8x. Therefore, 8x times the quantity x minus 6 is equal to 0. Using what's called the zero product property, I haven't referred to it as that yet, just that both of these things would have to be true, either one or the other, or both. X equals 0 or x equals 6. Okay, there are our solutions to those quadratic equations. Okay, the boxed in answers are solutions to the original equations. All right, and that's it. If C equals 0, use your greatest common factor method. Hope it went well for you. Leave a comment down below. Let me know other topics that you'd like covered. It can be specific questions to you in your math course. And as usual, we'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.